Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to complete Project 2. In Project 2 you're going to be harmonizing a melody. The most important part of this assignment is knowing how to deal with chord tones and non-chord tones in the melody. In melodic harmonization we oftentimes refer to chord tones as target notes and non-chord tones as approach notes. And again, it's very important to distinguish between the two because the rules for harmonizing, each one of them are different. Once again, it might be helpful to write out all of the chord tones above the chord symbols. So as I mentioned, the harmonization of target notes is handled differently than the harmonization of approach notes. I wrote a kind of core version of the rules here below. When you're harmonizing target notes, you must harmonize at a third or sixth below the melody, and the harmony notes must be chord tones. With approach notes, we use the same interval as the upcoming target note. That would be the target note directly to the right of the approach notes. And that's why they're called approach notes, because we harmonize them based on the approaching target note. So you might find it helpful to change all of the target notes to a different color, so you can easily distinguish between the two. So once again, the target notes must be harmonized at a third or sixth below the melody, and the harmony note must be a chord tone. Whenever you're harmonizing a melody, either the third or sixth below will be a chord tone. However, sometimes they'll both be chord tones, and in that case, you need to choose the best one. The best harmonization will most closely match the contour of the original melody. The contour is the shape of the line, whether it's high or low, or stepping up or leaping down. So to begin with, I'm going to add both a third and a sixth below the melodic pitch, and we'll see which one works best. A third below E is C. A sixth below E is G. Is there only one chord tone here, or are both of the pitches chord tones? Once again, if only one of them is a chord tone, then you should choose that note. If both of them are chord tones, you'll choose the one that most closely matches the contour of the original line. Both C and G are chord tones, so we can choose either. I think I'll leave them both there for now, and we'll choose the one that's best as we move on. A third below G is E. A sixth below G is B. So once again, both of these notes are chord tones, so either would work, but let's see which one is best here as we move on. This is a lot like your string pad. Remember when either a step up or a step down would work? You moved on to the next pitch, and as you proceeded, you would look back and see which one of the notes worked best. The next chord tone is B. A third below B is G. A sixth below B is D. Is there only one chord tone here, or are they both chord tones? Well, we can see that D is not a chord tone, and so that won't work. The target note must be harmonized at a third or sixth below, but it must also be a chord tone. So G is our only choice here. Now let's look back at our harmonization up to this point. Because we're using thirds to harmonize here, it would probably be a good idea to harmonize with thirds here as well. Because if we harmonize with sixths below here and then change to thirds, there will be an awkward leap in the middle of this melody. Now what about this note? It's a non-chord tone, so it's an approach note. For that, we would use the same interval as the upcoming target note to harmonize the approach note. The upcoming target note here is harmonized at a third below, and so this note would also be harmonized at a third below. Third below A is F. Now let's harmonize this target note. A third below is A, and a sixth below is E. Because A is not a chord tone, we can't use it. We have to use the E instead. Let's repeat this process for the next two target notes. A third below E is C, and a sixth below is G sharp. It's important to note here that you might need accidentals. A G natural would be a sixth below, but it wouldn't be a chord tone because G within an E7 chord is sharped. Notice that G sharp is a chord tone and C is not, so we'll choose the G sharp. For the G sharp, a third below is an E, a sixth below is a B. Both of those notes work, and so we'll keep them both for now. Now let's look at the B. A third below B is G sharp. Once again, we have to use G sharp because G natural would not be a chord tone. And a sixth below would be a D. For the last note in this measure, we have a D. A third below is a B, and a sixth below is an F. Notice that the F is not a chord tone, and so we can't use it. Now we can see we have a third below here. In order to match the contour of the melody, we should probably use a third here as well. We'll continue to use thirds as we move back. Now what about this approach note? Well, let's look to the upcoming target note. We harmonized this target note at a third below, and so we'll use that same interval here. Why did I use an F sharp here? I did so because we're tonicizing A minor here. Tonicizing means that for just a moment, it feels like we're in the key of A minor. And in an A melodic minor scale, we would raise both scale degree 6, which would be the F, and 7, which would be the G sharp. This is a little bit more complex than anything you'll be dealing with in your assignment. So if I lost you there for a minute, no worries. You'll learn more about this as you move on to advanced music theory. Moving on to the A minor. A third below is C. A sixth below is G. G is not a chord tone, so we can't use that. The next target note is the C. A third below is an A, and a sixth below is an E. Because I used a third here, it would probably be a good idea to use a third here as well, as that would most closely follow the contour of this melody. Once again, you want to try to avoid switching between thirds and sixths when the melody is active. This approach note is followed by a target note that is harmonized at a third below, and so we'll harmonize it with a third below as well. A third below this target note, the B, is a G, and a sixth below would be a D. Changing between thirds and sixths in just this short amount of space, an eighth note, would cause a disruption in the line, and so that would not match the original contour of the melody very well. So we will choose G. Now for the last target note in the measure. A third below would be E. A sixth below would be B. B is a chord tone and E is not, so initially it looks like B will be our best choice. However, I'm going to leave them both there for now, and I'll show you why in a moment. If I harmonize this G at a third below, I'll have E, and a sixth below, I'll have B. E is a chord tone and B is not, and so we will use the E. Now notice, if I chose the B here, which is a chord tone, instead of the E, which is not, I would have a leap in the harmony line that's not present in the melody, so the contours would not match very well. Once again, this is technically correct because B is a chord tone and E is not, and I'm supposed to harmonize target notes with chord tones. However, we can make an exception here and use the E. The reason for this is that we are only an eighth note away from the next bar, and so technically we could anticipate the chord change and say that this eighth note is being harmonized within a C major triad. Now let's harmonize that one last approach note. The upcoming target note is a G, which is now harmonized at a third below, and so we'll use a third below here as well. Now let's listen to what this sounds like. Notice how the melody blends with the harmony. We don't hear two independent lines, but rather a single line that's thicker, richer, and stronger than it would have been if we had the melody alone. Once again, I would highly encourage you to come to the virtual classes this week, as I've just gone over all of the rules here very briefly. But hopefully this overview helps you to better complete the assignment. Good luck.